So this is obviously I'm putting down memories. I'm putting down memories before I kind of remember them. So this is just spoken into the smartphone. I just listened back to the first installment of this. I don't know what I'll end up calling it, like sort of the Atomkraft, Rob's Atomkraft story or something like that. I listened back to the Rob and Bry thing, the first one, and I noticed there was chickens clucking in the background. Anybody who knows me and knows my videos knows that when I'm in the caravan, there's chickens clucking outside. So I'm actually starting a smartphone in Schleswig-Holstein, northern Germany here, right? And how's the chickens clucking on the audio? So I've looked out the window here of the van, the camper, and there's like about 15 chickens wandering about. I can't get away from clucking chickens. They're just following us all over. So anyway, now how will I haven't written down anything, well, I probably should, write down like chapters so I can remember. But I mean, I think as things go on in the future, because it's there's things that's happened in my life, or like people have travels, people have interesting things happening in their life. So it's definitely worth putting them down, which is what I'll do. And as AI comes in with it's just wizardry, and the sky's the limit. But I suppose these are just simple little talkies. Just once, a more detailed thing could come in the future. So where were we in the story? Brian Waff got signed with his band War Machine, and I'm doing the Atomkraft thing. So I'm at Jed's house. Jed's the drummer of Atomkraft. And then there's Tony Dolan, who's the singer-bass player of Atomkraft. And Jed's brother was Eric. Eric was the manager of Venom. Right? So that's how all that works. And I'm at Jed's house. He's showing us videos of Venom. And he's telling us about how we're going to be doing an album, going on tour. And I'm starting to think, well, this is great. This is exactly what I'm after, stuff happening. I remember Jed saying to us, he says, do you want, he says, how do you feel about playing like sort of working men's clubs and pubs and that? I says, I don't want to do that. I says, I want to be playing venues, mate. I want to be playing crowds, And he says, exactly. He says, right answer. I says, so, I was, he was letting us, he was always sort of, Jed was, like, showy, wanting to, the rockstar thing, welcome aboard. They definitely at that time, the beginning of 85, when I first met Jed, and all the Venom thing was blowing up, like, it was definitely, there'd definitely been stuff happening over the previous 3 to 4 years, like, so I was definitely talking to somebody who was in a state of mind where it's like, the world is our oyster, You got like Venom, you got Slayer supporting Venom on I think it was in the 84 or 83 tour. There's Metallica supported Venom. It was all happening, like, and quite rightfully, Venom never made any money, but they've getting the sort of place in history, like, undoubtedly, but that's for another video, that, like. So we're going to go on tour, and something I'd forgotten about, but me mum reminded us of it a couple of years ago. I'd totally forgotten about it, but the tour started with all of us, the three of us, and the three roadies. The three roadies were Gordon, Lug, and Jim. Those were Venom's roadies. And they were also our roadies as well, right? So there was the six of us waiting at a bus stop in Newcastle for this coach coming to take us down to London to get on the tour buses to head off to Europe, on a 3-week tour, 3.5, 4-week tour of Europe, supporting Exodus and Venom, right? So Atomkraft and the three roadies were stood at this bus stop, and apparently my mother was there and my father or something, and we stand at the queue, and my mother says to us, apparently, have you got clean underpants? And I said, well, I've got a couple of pairs, and my mother's gone, I'll go and get you some clean underpants. Right, so, this is me at 16, and all the rest of the older lads there all pissed themselves laughing. And my mother comes back 10 minutes later with some packets of new underpants. So my mother was just like a school trip, and in a way it was like, even for me it was like a school trip. So, but like, I went away a boy and came back a man, and all that much. What a fucking eye-opener that was. What was it? In Amsterdam, as we walked around, there was all the prostitutes, and like, fucking hell, in the 1980s. And on the tour bus, Abaddon, Tony Gans, when we were all on the bus one night, he says, have you heard? Did you see that that prostitute with the one eye? And I was like, oh no, and I said, no, I've never saw that. He says, apparently she'd wink you off with one eye. And I was like, oh, disgusting. And it took us like about 15 years later before I realised it was just a joke, wink it off, wank it off. He was a funny lad, Tony, like, even though he was Tony Bray, he still come up with some funny stuff, like. And so we jump on the tour bus, and it's just like six lads making a fucking racket, isn't it? And we got down to London, and even getting to London was like, just straight away getting to London was like amazing, how different it was. So, if you know what I mean. And that's it. It's the 1980s. It's like I've Waders and Pit, but rock and roll. And obviously, I'd have to give it some thought and write down some chapters about, I kind of just remember off the top of my head, fucking sitting in my camper van in fucking Germany, like with traffic and booting chickens. So, we're on the tour bus. There's these two big buses, like, and they were brand new buses, like, at the time, proper state-of-the-art, rockstar fucking coaches, like, with, like, bunk beds and microwave ovens. I mean, nobody had microwave ovens, like, they were new out. And telly as well, television. Of course, that was playing porn films the whole fucking time, like, I didn't think I'd even seen a fucking porn film. I hadn't. And that was fucking porn gun the whole fucking time. And so these coaches, and I thought, I'll have some of this, like, this is great, like. And then when we got to Europe, we got to Belgium or something, like, Abaddon, Tony Gans, fucking, right, you three out, you're in the other bus. This is Exodus's tour bus, which I was gutted about, because I thought, we got this massive tour bus to the three-way, Of course, we were on the bus with the three roadies, like, which was all right, you know. But actually, it was only and then and Tony as well, Abaddon, and the bus driver. So it was all pretty empty, really. It wasn't that packed, like. And the Exodus were on the other bus. Venom, Tony Bray, Abaddon, very cleverly kept his hand on the purse strings. So he was the money collector. He would collect the takings from all the shows, all the T-shirts, the merch stuff, you know. While the other two, Jeff and Conrad Kronos, were like staying in hotels, you know, doing the rockstar thing. This is why, like, I met Conrad Kronos a couple of times in Neat Records. Jeff I met a few times as well, but it was Tony Abaddon Bray that I got to know the most, like, because Tony was on the bus with the whole time on these tours, like, you know, and he was close friends with Eric, the manager, and Eric, the manager, was the brother of Jed. So, you know, it was Abaddon who was like, I knew quite a lot, like. I remember Jed says to us one day, he says, you should talk with Jeff. You should talk with Jeff Mantis, you know. He says, you are quite similar, you know. You get on with him. But, you know, of course, like, you know, I was just the baby. I wasn't just the baby of fucking Atomkraft. I was the baby of Neat Records, you know. Everybody was just so much older than us. They weren't old. They were just in the 20s and early 20s, you know. But, you know, the whole thing was a bit, you know, well, I'm still just, you know, I was just still young. I was still young in my mind as well, like, you know, still quite immature for my age. So I was just pretending to be an adult, like, even though I'm probably like a typical young teenager, you know, you don't know what the fuck's going on, you know. But the tours, big shows, there were big shows as well every sort of night. You know, I remember Milan and Rome. I remember being in Italy. It's just fucking loads of like Venom fans and, you know, lovely lasses as well, like, you know. You know, with the T-shirts on and the Venom T-shirts on, and just it was just a wild ride of like fucking. Of course, you know, it was Venom that came to see Venom. It was Venom who laid the, you know, we were third on the bill, us, Exodus and Venom. So, you know, and plus it was the beginning of the American invasion of the thrash thing. So, you know, a lot of people were coming out to see Exodus as well, like, and weren't really that fussed about Venom, like, because a lot of them had maybe seen Venom the year before, or it was just, everything was getting faster and faster, the music, you see, more extreme. Started by Venom, but you know, Venom were sort of pounding band, you know, and what was becoming vogue was faster, and, you know, epitomized by sort of, you know, Dave Lombardo with Slayer, and Tony Bray Abaddon couldn't play like that. Our drummer Jed couldn't play like that. You know, so whereas Jed learned to play like that, like, but it wasn't Venom's thing, you know. That wasn't what Venom were anyway. But anyway, in that year of 1985, everybody was on top, really. Venom were on top. Exodus were on top. Their first time in Europe, kicking ass. And that was a first tour for us, and we were like fucking just happy to be there, you know. And you know, just thrown into the mix, and like, right, this is how it works. You know, obviously we with Atomkraft, you know, we ended up, you know, writing faster and thrashier stuff. You know, both me and Tony Dolan, because that was the vogue and what was coming in. So that's what I had to do. But certainly in that I can hear Heinz cock-a-doodle-doo, German ones. So within that sort of crazy 3 weeks, 4 weeks, whatever it was. You know, it was a crazy ride of tour buses, you know, driving, being pissed on the drunk on the tour bus at night. You know, you're looking out the window at night, looking out the window through the daytime, seeing all these countries that I'd only ever seen on movies. You know, that's what really impressed me about the whole thing was, you know, I'm looking out the window and it's like, you know, I've grown up watching the movies, the films, you know, The Italian Job, Magnificent Men, Their Flying Machines, Monte Carlo or Bust, you know, the Pink Panther stuff, Peter Sellers. Just see, I would always be watching them films, but I'm also looking at the background. I'm looking at the scenery. I'm looking at the houses. I'm looking at the cars. And it was the same when I went to the States years later. You know, I was just immersed in this, and I'm still like that now. That's why I'm in Germany now. You know, I've always had a real fascination with, because I've always loved architecture, like, you know, I love old buildings and that, you know, so I was absorbed in that. The shows, like, through the daytime, you know, I would be sort of sat in all because they were big 2,000-seater jobbies, and I'd be sort of just sitting playing my guitar, practicing, you know. One day, see Gary Holt, the from Exodus. He was a nice lad. He was a nice lad. For some reason he said one day when Dolan was there with us, he says, "You're the best guitarist on this tour, like, Rob." I was, "Oh, thanks very much." He wasn't taking a piss, like, because it wasn't in his nature, like, you know. But I was just obsessed with just playing all the time. So I think rather than ligging about, I would just be happy sitting on my own in the empty seats, you know, through the daytime, just practicing, you know, and thinking about the gig on the night. That was my thing, you know. And what else? I remember I thought Exodus were great, full on. Yeah, we sort of knew, the three of us, me, Jed and Tony, we knew that we're going to have to sort of get up with game, like, because we could see the reaction of the crowd, like, with Exodus, like, and we knew what they'd been like with Slayer as well on our first gig at the Marquee Club in London, like a few months earlier. We knew that this thrash thing was coming, like, and it wasn't going to stop. So we knew what we're going to have to start getting up to speed. We used to say getting up to speed. But also with the Exodus, what I noticed as well, like, there was always a feeling with Atomkraft, you see, because you know, I mean, I'm not getting in any personals. You know, I never really clicked with Tony Doran, like, you know. And Jed was all right, but there was always just this sort of, there was just a fucking vibe, like, you know, amongst that lot. You know, I remember looking at the Exodus, Gary Holt, you know. I remember thinking, they're all fucking mates, like, you know. There's 5 of them, they're all getting on with each other really well. I want to be in a band like that, like, you know. I want to be in a family like that, you know, everybody's like everybody, like that, like the mates, you know. I never felt that like that with Atomkraft, you know, the whole time. It wasn't like, it's not unusual. Most bands aren't like mates, like, you know. There's that energy and that sort of stuff that makes bands fizz, you know, and there's, you know, egos and everything else. So it's more common than not. But I just remember thinking that you know, That's something I remember thinking, just noticing. I would notice the sort of respect like the band had for Gary Holt, is the band leader, and he didn't seem to be trying too hard. He was just seemed to be a nice fella, And so that was all happening, and that was great. And you can imagine the full on, the music being played and the gigs on a night, and I heard a bootleg last year, which I turned into a video from Atomkraft playing it, Rome or Milan, one of the shows, and it's very, you can hardly hear the music. It's rough, like it's a rough bootleg, but you can hear the roar of the crowd, so it'd tell you how big the crowd was. And also I heard as well, which I'd completely forgotten about, was I'm doing a guitar solo, and then I remembered that. I think I'd said to Tony and Jed, I'm going to do a guitar solo, and they've like, okay, so I don't know where I got the bottle from to do that, like, but I remember hearing that, and I remembered thinking, oh shit, I used to hate when that would come around on a night, because I'd be shitting myself. Like Tony Don would say, right, Rob Mathew on guitar, and I would go into this guitar solo, and I would like do a solo, then stop, and then I'll cheer, and then fly about a bit more and stop, and I'll cheer. It was slightly improvised, but there was stuff worked out as well. But I remember thinking, I wish I hadn't ever set out, like, because I put myself right on the spot at 16 years old, like in front of fucking 2,000 people every night in these foreign countries. But when you're young, you fucking pull it off, So it must have looked hilarious, like, because, there'd have been load of... I mean, I was sort of younger than most of the crowd, or the same age, I mean, in their age. I mean, any sort of... The most of the crowd must have been looking and think, fucking hell, who's this kid on stage? Doing his guitar solo and getting the whole fucking crowd cheering. That's fucking funny as fuck, that, like. Be amazing if some video footage or better audio quality of that sort of stuff comes into existence. Like I say, I mean, I'm sort of rambling, and like I'm a bit tired here, and I've got a big day's busking tomorrow, like, and I will go into more detail, like, in a sort of really professional way with the help of AI, like, as things unfold, like, in the future, like. I'm going to keep it all nice, because it doesn't need to be nasty, Just keep it all fucking nice, because it's a good story, It should be an uplifting story for people to watch and observe, and with AI, it could even be made into movies, I mean, the sky's the limit, like. So how can I round this off? It was Atomkraft off on tour with Exodus and Venom headlining, and it was a crazy trip for those few weeks. And coming back, I went away a boy and came back a man, just in time for my Sunday dinner.